Won't you join me?
Today's subject is a woman whose grace rewrote the rules of Hollywood glamour, whose poise turned runways and film sets into timeless legends, and whose face became a symbol of elegance from Paris to New York, Audrey Hepburn. She was the wide-eyed princess who charmed the world in Roman holiday, the black dress icon who strolled Fifth Avenue at dawn and breakfast at Tiffany's, and the humanitarian whose compassion carried her far beyond the silver screen. But behind the couture gowns, Academy Awards, and worldwide acclaim, Audrey Hepburn's most enduring legacy was not carved out under studio lights. It was built quietly at home, in the lives of two sons who grew up watching their mother balance global fame with bedtime rituals and handwritten notes slipped into school lunches. While audiences adored her as the eternal muse of Givenchy and the golden girl of Hollywood's golden age, Sean and Luca knew her simply as Mom. A woman who showed up to parent-teacher meetings after red carpet premieres, who traded designer heels for garden clogs in Switzerland, and who measured success not by headlines but by hugs. Her journey was not without scars, a childhood shadowed by war, marriages that crumbled under the weight of fame, and a health battle that would end far too soon. Yet through it all, she loved her children steadily, fiercely, and without pretense. This is the story of Audrey Hepburn, and what became of the two sons of a woman the world will never forget. Sean Hepburn Ferrer was born in the spring of 1960 at a hospital in Switzerland, only months after Audrey Hepburn had finished the scenes that would cement her as a global icon. From his very first days, the infant was surrounded by cameras, with photographs of his mother holding him sold to magazines across Europe. The Ferrer family moved constantly between Rome and Lausanne, trying to escape relentless reporters camped outside their homes. While Audrey flew to Paris for fittings on her next film, Sean stayed behind with a nanny, hearing the constant ringing of phones and the knocking of journalists hungry for details about the queen of the silver screen. His childhood was shaped by suitcases and airport lounges, and he was often carried onto sets in New York, quietly watching as his mother slipped into that iconic black dress under the blinding lights. Even as a small child, Sean sensed the contrast between the glittering world outside and the quiet nights inside their rented apartment, where his mother would wipe away makeup and hold him close, unaware that by morning their names would once again fill headlines. In those early years, Sean learned a quiet truth. In this life, for him and for his mother, privacy was never truly theirs. Between 1966 and 1969, Sean stepped into boyhood while living in the shadow of two worlds, Hollywood's glow and Europe's restraint. Audrey had scaled back her film schedule, moving the family to a quieter life in Switzerland, but the spotlight never dimmed. Sean attended international schools where classmates whispered about seeing his mother's face on posters, and teachers discreetly asked for autographs. At age 8, he began accompanying her on trips to London and Rome, watching from the wings as she greeted co-stars and directors, her elegance commanding every room. The twist came in 1968 when Audrey's marriage to Mel Ferrer collapsed. A headline splashed across the newspapers that classmates read aloud at school. Reporters even appeared outside the school gates, calling his name, trying to capture the image of a child caught in an adult scandal. At home, Audrey tried to shield him, cooking simple dinners and reading to him in soft tones. But Sean could feel the tension, the weight of rumors that painted their family life as fragile. Those years carved into him an awareness that fame was not just glamour, it was also intrusion, and every personal fracture became public property. From 1970 to 1975, a new chapter began with the birth of Luca Dotti, Audrey's second son, arriving just as she stepped away from the Hollywood machine. The family settled in Rome, seeking a quieter rhythm, but Luca's early years unfolded under the same unblinking gaze that had followed his mother for decades. Paparazzi lingered near the villa gates, snapping blurred images of the newborn in his stroller, and headlines speculated on Audrey's marriage to Andrea Dotti. While Luca toddled through sunlit courtyards, Sean, now a protective older brother at 10, noticed the tension rising in the household as rumors swirled about Andrea's infidelities. Audrey tried to preserve a calm routine, hosting simple breakfasts and walking Luca to the park. Yet Luca grew up hearing muffled arguments behind closed doors and seeing flashes from photographers hidden in nearby cars. In kindergarten, other children whispered about magazine articles showing his parents at parties with strangers, fueling early confusion over loyalty and image. These were formative years marked by contrasts, the warmth of a mother determined to create normalcy, and the unsettling intrusion of a public always hungry for scandal. For Luca, childhood came with an early lesson that even in a home filled with love, the outside world could stir storms they never asked for. Between 1976 and 1980, Sean entered his teenage years while Luca grew from a wide-eyed child into a boy learning to navigate a family name that still turned heads across continents. Audrey had retreated further from Hollywood, choosing to live mostly in Switzerland and Italy, where she hoped her sons could grow up away from the relentless flashbulbs. Yet privacy was never complete. Sean, now in his mid-teens, began to experiment with film cameras, inspired by days spent watching his mother on set and listening to her stories of directors and long shooting nights. Luca, only 6 or 7, sketched endlessly in notebooks, captivated by the costume designs and movie posters that filled their home. But peace was shaken when an exhibition of Audrey's photographs in Paris drew unexpected crowds, and to Sean's dismay, journalists dug up details about her family, splashing pictures of the brothers across tabloids. At school, Sean was cornered with questions about his parents' past, while Luca heard playground taunts about the headlines. Audrey did her best to steady them, tucking handwritten notes into Sean's school bag and guiding Luca through art projects at the kitchen table. Those years cemented a bond between the brothers, forged in the understanding that fame was both a blessing and a burden, shaping their young identities long before they chose their own paths. From 1981 to 1989, Sean stepped into adulthood, determined to carve out his own place in a world that had long defined him by his mother's shadow. In his early 20s, he left the safety of Switzerland and moved between Los Angeles and New York, taking small roles behind the camera as an assistant producer and learning the unglamorous side of filmmaking. Those first projects were modest and often struggled for funding, but Sean was driven by the need to prove that his ambition was his own. Meanwhile, Luca, entering his teens, watched quietly from Europe, sketching designs and absorbing the art books Audrey collected on her travels. Yet the glow of Audrey's legacy followed Sean everywhere. Producers would greet him with polite smiles, then ask about his mother before discussing his work. And when one early film venture collapsed in 1985, trade papers mocked him as someone trying to cash in on a famous name. Audrey, though immersed in humanitarian missions for UNICEF, called him after every setback, reminding him that failure was not shame, but education. Those years were a crucible. Sean faced whispers that he had no identity beyond being Audrey's son, while Luca, still far from the industry, began to see that his own future might be safer away from the spotlight. The brothers, though on different continents, shared long-distance calls late at night, confiding in each other about the strange weight of being heirs to a legend. Between 1990 and 1993, Luca entered adulthood under circumstances no one in the family could have prepared for. While he quietly studied design in Rome, building a portfolio that had nothing to do with film, Audrey's health began to falter, and the world's most private mother suddenly faced a very public battle. Paparazzi camped outside hospitals, reporters speculated endlessly about her condition, and Luca, only in his early 20s, found himself pulled into interviews he never wanted, asked to speak about a future without her when he was still clinging to the present. Sean, already in his 30s, flew back and forth between projects and his mother's bedside, shielding Luca as much as he could from the questions. By late 1992, Audrey was visibly thinner, but she continued to work for UNICEF, traveling even as her body weakened. Luca watched her step off planes, smile through pain, and return home late at night to read him letters from children she met abroad. Then came January 1993, the devastating twist that would define them both. Audrey passed away in her Swiss home, and Luca, still so young, walked behind her coffin in front of cameras broadcasting live around the world. In that moment, the brothers felt the full weight of her legacy descend on them, not just as fans' idol, but as a mother, they had to grieve in public. From 1994 to 2000, Sean carried his mother's memory into a new era, stepping out of the shadow that had once confined him and using it instead as a source of purpose. In the mid-1990s, he began sorting through Audrey's letters, scripts, and photographs, piecing together a portrait of the woman he knew beyond the cameras. He traveled across Europe, speaking at small gatherings and charity events, sharing stories of a mother who would return from world tours and still kneel on the floor to play with her sons. By 1999, after years of quiet work, he released Audrey Hepburn, An Elegant Spirit, a memoir that revealed both the icon and the parent, filled with childhood memories and candid photographs. The book became an unexpected bestseller, celebrated for its intimacy, yet it also sparked a twist Sean had not anticipated. Debates within the family and among business partners about which parts of Audrey's life should have remained private. Reporters questioned his motives, some accusing him of exploiting her legacy, while others praised him for preserving it with grace. Sean remained calm, telling interviewers that his mother taught him dignity meant standing firm in the face of judgment. Through those years, he balanced new fatherhood with the heavy responsibility of curating a legend, proving that her story could live on through the very child she once rocked to sleep after long days on set. From 2001 to 2010, Luca quietly stepped into a role that surprised those who knew him as the reserved younger son, taking on responsibilities within the Audrey Hepburn Children's Fund and bringing his own vision to the legacy she left behind. In the early 2000s, he moved between Rome and Los Angeles, overseeing exhibitions that showcased not just glamorous costumes, but also artifacts from her UNICEF missions, reminding the world that Audrey's heart mattered as much as her beauty. Yet behind the curated displays, tension brewed. Sean and Luca occasionally disagreed over which projects best reflected their mother's values, with Luca favoring smaller educational initiatives, while Sean pursued broader media campaigns. In 2006, an ambitious exhibition in the United States was delayed after internal debates, and whispers of a rift between the brothers reached the press, painting them as rivals rather than partners. Luca, deeply private, found himself dragged into interviews, pressed to comment on decisions he believed should have remained family matters. Still, he pressed forward, using his design skills to shape traveling exhibits and children's programs, determined to honor her in his own way. These years revealed a twist no one expected. The two brothers, united by grief, now had to navigate the complicated task of protecting their mother's image in a world eager to turn even her legacy into headlines. From 2011 to 2020, Sean emerged as the more visible custodian of Audrey's legacy, traveling the globe to attend to film retrospectives, charity galas, and television interviews that kept her story alive for a new generation. In his 50s, he had grown into a calm, articulate figure, often standing before packed auditoriums, recounting how his mother would finish an exhausting UNICEF trip and still insist on reading bedtime stories. He produced documentaries and consulted on museum installations, determined to present Audrey as more than just a cinematic icon. Yet with every new project came scrutiny. Some critics argued that the constant stream of books, exhibitions, and merchandise risked turning her into a brand rather than preserving her soul. A 2015 documentary he helped produce drew particular controversy when a few tabloids accused him of over-commercializing her image, a sting that forced Sean to address the public directly, stating in interviews that every decision was made to fund children's programs she would have supported. Behind the scenes, he balanced these pressures with his own life as a father, passing on stories of resilience to his children while fielding calls from journalists asking for comments on anniversaries and reissues. These years became a testament to his perseverance, showing that even decades after Audrey's passing, Sean continued to carry the dual weight of her legend and the duty to protect it. From 2021 to the present, Luca has remained the quieter of the two brothers, living mostly in Rome and choosing a life far removed from the red carpets and press circuits that still follow his family name. Now in his early 50s, he continues his work as a designer and consultant, often collaborating on projects that echo the elegance he grew up around. Yet he rarely allows cameras into his world, When the Audrey Hepburn Children's Fund announced new initiatives in 2022, Luca appeared briefly at a small event, speaking softly about how his mother taught him that true beauty was in service to others, not in the spotlight. That rare public appearance sparked a wave of media attention, with old photographs resurfacing and headlines speculating about why he had avoided the public eye for so long. A subtle twist came when a planned auction of Audrey's personal belongings in 2023 drew controversy. Luca stepped forward, voicing his opposition to selling certain items, calling them irreplaceable memories rather than commodities, a statement that won admiration from longtime fans. Though he has chosen privacy, Luca remains deeply tied to his mother's legacy, occasionally lending his design expertise to museum exhibitions or educational programs, while quietly guiding younger artists who seek his advice. Even as decades have passed, every time his name appears in print, it is linked to hers, a reminder of the shadow he was born into and the dignity with which he continues to carry it. Two sons, each lived a different version of what it meant to be Audrey Hepburn's child, not just by name, but by the weight that name carried. Their mother gave the world unforgettable performances and tireless compassion. They gave her something quieter: preservation, protection, and the pieces of her story she never had time to finish. If this glimpse into their journey resonates with you, and you want more deep dives into the hidden lives behind Hollywood's most cherished legends, subscribe to Legacy Uncovered. Your support keeps these untold chapters alive. Thank you for listening.